Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Simplified. I'm your host OJ. Today I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash. We had quite a rally over the last few days, so let's find out what was that all about. Okay, so first let me start with the news. Bitcoin is reaching another all-time high as we speak. Right now we are standing at 7,886, 87 as I'm speaking, and we are setting a new all-time high. We are going for the 8,000 probably over the next couple of days. We see that the previous all-time high here at this candle week, we were at 7,888. We are now exactly at the same point. So whatever happened over the last few days, which is what I'm going to discuss right now, we have completely recovered. So what happened really? We saw that just after SegWit 2x was called off, was cancelled, and we still don't know really what is going to happen with SegWit 2x. The market at first, in the first few days of after the fork was cancelled, many people rejoiced and felt that Bitcoin is safe, and therefore they were confident. A lot of buyers and the prices went up, as I said, to the previous all-time high, which was at 7,868. Right now we are standing already, already at 7,920 as we speak. So let me not detract though. We had a few days of, a couple of days actually, post SegWit 2x, that people were feeling confident and they were buying a lot. And then suddenly the market turned. The market turned with a lot of help from the opposite camp, the Bitcoin Cash camp, who was really using the failure of SegWit 2x in order to start a very heavy and very successful, I must say, marketing campaign against Bitcoin. First of all, they had a lot of volume coming into Bitcoin Cash, mainly from Korea. This is what many people noticed. And if we look at Bitcoin Cash, this is what it did. In the matter of a couple of days, it went from 0.10 all the way to 0.50, almost, not almost, half a Bitcoin. That was a really quick jump. It was literally a pump, which I see it as a pump. I mean, let's not forget that Bitcoin Cash is in effect an altcoin, and these kind of pump and dumps happen with altcoins all the time. So to many people this looked like a typical pump and dump, and we called it out. Actually, I did post on my Facebook about it, I think on Twitter as well. I was telling people that this is a hype and don't really get caught up in the hype, because I know many people who were really eager to start buying it here after it was already too high. It was at $2,000 and over $2,000. Let me just quickly see what was $2,800 it managed to reach for a brief moment. Most of it was traded around 1,900, 1,800, and many people were really getting caught up in that hype, in the FOMO, in the fear of missing out, and starting to buy it at this point. And to many traders and many people knew already that this is not going to last, and we were right. I mean, I'm not really a fan of aggressive marketing. I noticed that Bitcoin Cash was really aggressive in their marketing. Every 5 minutes they were tweeting, and every tweet was comparing Bitcoin Cash to Bitcoin. Rather than just celebrating their own success, they were basing their success on the demise of Bitcoin, which is, to me, it's a little bit a low blow, and I find aggressive marketing always goes hand in hand with not very genuine intentions. Let's put it that way. But in any case, they managed to reach an all-time high, and it was $2,800. It was for a very brief moment, but it was enough to attract this tweet from Vitalik, the guy behind Ethereum, for those of you who are not familiar. So he congratulated the team behind Bitcoin Cash, saying, congrats on this, seriously, they managed to get so much trading volume that they surpassed Ethereum and for the first time Ethereum was knocked out of the second place in a very long time. So this is a friendly tweet coming from Vitalik. It also it has a double meaning, because it also shows you that these three people who he is congratulating are really the people pulling the strings with Bitcoin Cash. And even though Bitcoin Cash claims to be the original Bitcoin, the true spirit of Satoshi and all of that, it is in fact looking quite centralized. At least to me, it looks quite centralized. Many people are accusing it of being centralized. There is a very good article here that I will have in the description below the video, so grab the link from there. This is what you should know about the difference between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. So I'm not going to read all of that. I will have the link so that you can check it out. But they're also talking about centralized mining. If you see here on this graph, the mining for Bitcoin Cash is really just a handful of big pools. And some of them are one of the biggest pools via BTC and pool. You know, these are some of the biggest pools here. So in terms of centralization, I really don't see a strong argument coming from the Bitcoin Cash team to counterfeit this claim. They do have their own statement here, which is published, which is saying that Bitcoin Cash has multiple independent development teams. BTC has one Bitcoin Core, and also it claims that both of the coins compete for the same mining hash power, and also claims that an argument that one has more centralized mining than the other is illogical. Now, I don't really know why is it illogical. I can't see exactly their argument here. As adoption grows, users dealing with small transactions do not need to run nodes. Anyone can easily run a big block node now. If you can't afford to run a node, then you don't need to. The merchants you transact with will run one for you. Even small businesses will easily afford to run up a node. Now, one of the arguments against Bitcoin adopting bigger blocks is that with adopting bigger blocks, it will become mining centralized, because people at home cannot really afford to be mining bigger blocks. So Bitcoin Cash here is trying to reject this claim. I am not a programmer, so I'm not really that familiar, and as you know, I'm trying to keep things simplified here, so we will have to find out more about this as time goes by. There is a blog here that is claiming that in July, at the end of July, there was already a document that was leaked, which was outlining a conspiracy against Bitcoin from the Bitcoin Cash team. So this is something that you should read into. I do not want to claim that this is true or, you know, take sides on this one, because I'm trying to just deliver you the news here. Of course, I am a fan of the stronger Bitcoin, the more popular Bitcoin, the current Bitcoin, because this is the Bitcoin that I started with. But if Bitcoin Cash proves to have genuine intentions of building a coin that is decentralized and that is the true Bitcoin, and if we see that the current Bitcoin is heavily manipulated, that the Bitcoin core team and is going into a direction that is not necessarily in favor of the whole community, then we will have to reconsider everything that we know about Bitcoin. Currently, there is a big question mark which of the two coins will claim the title. I know that Bitcoin Cash is really weak right now. They're mainly relying on heavy marketing and social media, and I'm not really seeing them as being genuine enough. But this is, my view can change with time, because if we find out more and if it's going into the direction of Bitcoin Cash, I could be persuaded. For the moment, I still believe that Bitcoin is the true Bitcoin, and I don't think that we have moved away too far from the original Satoshi white paper. Even though there have been updates to the network, they are inevitable. Bitcoin Cash doesn't support SegWit, and Bitcoin now has SegWit. Many people try to claim that Bitcoin post SegWit is not exactly the same Bitcoin as it started, and yes, that could be true. But if this is the direction that needed to be taken in order to progress and in order to upgrade, I'm not against upgrades, and also with Segwit, we now are opening the door for possibly adopting the Lightning Network, something that many people are already talking about. It will be the subject of my next video, so watch out for this one. But many people pointed out the fact that Bitcoin Cash, the main volume, the biggest volume, came from Korea, South Korea. One of the biggest exchanges in South Korea was trading Bitcoin Cash, and it's always actually bringing the biggest volume for Bitcoin Cash. If we look at here, we can see that Bitcoin Cash against dollar currently stands at 202 million in volume, and the volume of the Korean exchange is almost 700 million. So that is more than 3 times bigger than the volume coming from dollar. The volume coming from Bitcoin is even less, 139 million. So clearly there's something happening with South Korea. Apparently they have a big lobby there, the Bitcoin Cash team, and this is how we are seeing that this growth of Bitcoin Cash that happened over the last week was not organic growth. This was a typical pump and dump situation, which, as I said, we have seen in the altcoins many times. It happens almost on a daily basis, in fact. But it really made a difference here, because this is a contender for the Bitcoin crown, and also because they managed to get to the point of being half of Bitcoin, which is quite a serious achievement. So this is how the events went. There's already, a speculation about, Bitcoin Cash being run by mafia people, and people trying to call Roger out on some of his past. I wasn't actually aware that he had such a sketchy past, but apparently he served 10 months in federal prison and 3 years probation, allegedly, in fact, because I haven't really went into very big research to find out how much of this is true. But I'm pretty sure that when you read these kind of things in the public space, they are not really coming from out of thin air. A lot of the times they are really backed by the facts, and if you research more into him, you will probably find that this is true. I wouldn't be surprised anyway. For illegally selling agricultural grade explosives over the internet, in addition to storing them in family residential apartment units and mailing them through federal postage. Okay, moving on. A big exchange here dumping Bitcoin Cash, the Hong Kong-based Bitcoin exchange BitMEX. They're announcing that they do not agree with the consensus hard fork and does not accept the manner in which Bitcoin Cash was forked. Don't forget, it forked on August the 1st, just as we were seeing Segwit being implemented. So it was a very last-minute call. It came in the 11th hour, as we say. So I'm not surprised to see this statement here. They do not accept in the manner in which Bitcoin Cash was forked, or the lack of preparation or notice before the fork. We consider this a dangerous action that imposes unacceptable costs on end users and businesses. So we're seeing that the future for Bitcoin Cash is not yet quite clear. There were many articles in the media, and of course Bitcoin.com had a lot of articles that were pro-Bitcoin Cash. We know now that they're completely manipulating their readers and misinforming their audience by trying to make them believe that Bitcoin Cash is in fact the new Bitcoin and the real Bitcoin. I think that nobody should be making that claim until the crown has actually been won, and that would be once you have the bigger hashing power, and once you have already the bigger volume and everything else. They did have bigger volume than Bitcoin for about a minute, and they tweeted about it. It didn't really last very long. In any case, we are seeing here the Cointelegraph also being quite happy to report about Bitcoin Cash and making this really big eye-catching titles. Bitcoin Cash might soon be worth 1/10 of a Bitcoin. Now this is a title that might make you think that this is a big deal, but in fact Bitcoin Cash is in decline, and soon it will be worth 1/10, but it was worth more. In any case, if you're a new reader and you don't really know much about Bitcoin, this to you would sound like Bitcoin Cash is a big deal, you have to get involved. The article is not misleading itself. It actually says that there is a big decline, and you know, it's a drop and everything, but the title The title is something else. There is now another title here, how Bitcoin Cash has suddenly become the real thing. And this is manipulating public opinion. This is not exactly independent reporting, which is what I would expect from someone who is called the Cointelegraph, because that is a name that kind of calls for a bit of less biased opinion. This looks a bit more tabloid kind of writing than something that should be coming from the Telegraph, right? It's not the Telegraph, of course, it's the Cointelegraph, which is just a blog. So this is a good article, however, despite the big title. It's a good article making the differentiation between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin. So I will have it, of course, in the links below the video. You can have a look at that as well. But back to Twitter, I want to point out one tweet here from Charlie Lee that Bitcoin Cash is a lot more miner centralized because its network hash rate is a lot less than BTC. A small pool can actually have 51%. And, you know, with 51%, that is a majority. The whole point of decentralization is not to have any single entity owning more than 51%. So its security is weak because of that. He's now pointing out something about Litecoin, which of course Charlie Lee is the person who created Litecoin, but he has also worked for Coinbase for a very long time. He helped make Coinbase the biggest wallet in the world that everyone is using, especially for new users, people who are just starting with Bitcoin. Coinbase is really user-friendly and easy, simple to use, so it is the wallet that many people are starting with, so we cannot really discount it as important. I'm going to have a couple of extracts from an interview that I'm borrowing here from these guys, the blockchainers. Shout out to you guys, that was a great interview with Charlie Lee that you did, and I'm going to borrow a couple of extracts so that you can see what is he saying about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin's future and Bitcoin Cash as well.
If I had to choose, I would say Bitcoin can focus on being a store of value. Like security and decentralization is the most important, and that's why the Bitcoin core devs are not willing to risk that, right? I think the reason why Bitcoin is so valuable today is because it's the most secure coin and it's the most decentralized. If the core devs actually risk that and just like increase on-chain capacity like 8 times, all of a sudden like people can't run nodes anymore, node count would decrease, and before you know it, like it becomes a better, like a little bit more decentralized PayPal, and it's no longer like the store of value that can compete against gold and all those other asset classes, right? What I'm worried about is node centralization, right? So if it's really hard for anyone to run a node, then all you get is like companies like Coinbase, big companies or big miners running nodes, and everyone else will be using like SPV wallets where they can't validate themselves, but they just have to trust a third party to validate for them. And when that happens, then it becomes very easy to attack Bitcoin because all you have to do is coerce the big companies to change Bitcoin, and people can't do anything about it, right? So I think it's important that people can run nodes and can validate their own transactions if they want to. Not everyone will choose to, but once people can't afford to do that anymore, then we have a problem.
So this was Charlie Lee, founder of Litecoin, and his view on Bitcoin, Bitcoin scaling, Bitcoin Cash, bigger block sizes, and I'm curious to know actually what are your thoughts on the subject. If you have an opinion, leave it in the comments below the video. And lastly, I'm going to check the chart again for Bitcoin. So we saw that whilst I was speaking to you, we reached another all-time high at $7,975. This is on Bitstamp. Let me quickly see what is going to show up on Bitfinex. On Bitfinex, the top was at $8,017. So this is officially the new all-time high that I'm leaving you with. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'm gonna come back next week with another update on Bitcoin.